I was cleaning my fiancé's room. Then I found his wedding card under the bed when I confronted him. My hands were shaking so badly that the card almost slipped from my grip. The soft golden letters danced before my eyes, blurred by the tears that refused to stay back. Sunlight streamed through the wide bedroom window, spilling over the cream-colored walls as if mocking me, making sure every cruel detail was visible. It wasn't just any card. It was an invitation. An invitation to a wedding that was happening in 2 days. And the groom's name was the same man I had been living with, loving, and waiting on for 4 years. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My chest rose and fell in sharp, painful bursts as if the air had turned into shards of glass. I read the names again, desperate to believe I had misunderstood. Ethan James Reynolds and Victoria and Hayes request the honor of your presence at their wedding ceremony. My Ethan. The Ethan who had slipped a silver ring onto my finger 3 years ago, and promised that it was only temporary until he could afford something better. The Ethan who made me believe I was his only one. The card fluttered from my trembling hands, landing softly on the hardwood floor. I sank to my knees, staring at it as if by sheer will I could change the names written in that elegant script. My mind raced, flipping through every memory, every whispered, "I love you." Every night I stayed awake waiting for him to come home from his so-called business meetings. The front door clicked open. The familiar sound of his footsteps echoed in the hallway, growing louder, closer. My throat tightened as I scrambled to pick up the card, clutching it to my chest like proof of a crime. When Ethan appeared in the doorway, his dark hair messy from the gym and a coffee cup in his hand, he looked like the man I had fallen in love with. Calm, confident, almost flawless. But when his eyes dropped to the card I was holding, something shifted in his expression. The easy smile vanished, replaced by a sharp, cold calculation that made my stomach twist. "Emily," he said slowly, setting the cup down on the dresser. "Where did you find that?" I wanted to scream, to throw the card in his face, to demand how he could betray me so completely. But all that came out was a broken whisper. "What is this, Ethan?" His jaw clenched. For a long, tense moment, neither of us moved. The silence between us grew heavy, filled with everything I wanted to say but couldn't. My mind was a storm. 4 years of waiting, of cooking his meals, of cleaning his clothes, of defending him to friends who told me he wasn't treating me right. 4 years that now felt like a cruel joke. I remembered the very first time we met, how I'd been working late at the coffee shop down the street during a rainstorm. He had walked in, tall and confident, ordering only a black coffee. He had looked at me and said I had beautiful eyes. Just like that, he'd made me feel special, seen in a way no one had ever made me feel before. Within weeks, I was falling asleep in his sleek downtown apartment, and within months, I had practically moved in. Back then, I thought I was the luckiest woman alive. Now, looking at that card, I realized I was nothing more than a shadow in his life. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to work. "You told me we were getting married, Ethan. You made me wait. All this time. Who is Victoria? Why are you marrying her?" For a split second, I thought I saw guilt flicker in his eyes. But it was gone as quickly as it came. His lips curled into something that looked like a smile but carried no warmth. "Emily, don't be dramatic," he said, his voice smooth, detached. "You were never really—" He stopped himself, his tone turning sharper. "You weren't supposed to find that." Tears burned my eyes, but anger rose beneath them, hot and steady. "You lied to me. 4 years. You made me believe we were building a future." My voice cracked, but I didn't look away from him. He sighed, running a hand through his hair, and the gesture that once seemed so endearing now felt cold and rehearsed. "You're overreacting. We had fun, didn't we? You were convenient. But marriage." His voice turned cruel. "Did you really think I would marry someone like you?" The words cut deeper than any knife could. My knees felt weak, and I gripped the edge of the dresser for balance. My whole body screamed to collapse, but I forced myself to stand taller. I thought about all the nights I stayed up making sure his shirts were ironed for work, the mornings I woke up early to prepare his coffee just the way he liked it, the holidays I spent alone because he was always busy. I thought about my best friend, Sarah, rolling her eyes whenever I defended him. "Emily, you're basically his maid," she had said once. I'd laughed it off back then, saying she didn't understand. But she had been right. They had all been right. Ethan stepped closer, his voice dropping low. "You're not good enough for the life I want, Emily. You should know that by now. I froze, the weight of his words pressing down on me until it was hard to breathe. I had given him everything. My time, my love, my trust. And he had just dismissed me as if I were nothing. My heart shattered into pieces so small I wasn't sure I'd ever be able to put them back together. I turned toward the door, my legs unsteady beneath me. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay there another second. His voice followed me down the hallway. Casual, dismissive, final. Leave your key on the counter when you go. The sound of the card still crumpled in my hand was louder than my footsteps as I left. I stumbled into the street with my keys digging into my palm, the cold autumn wind biting against my face. I couldn't even feel the chill properly. My body was trembling for another reason altogether. My vision blurred as I crossed the road toward my little rusted Honda parked at the curb. I sat inside, slammed the door shut, and pressed my forehead against the steering wheel. My whole body shook as sobs broke out of me, raw and unstoppable. 4 years. I whispered it out loud as if saying it would make it easier to understand. 4 years gone. My phone buzzed inside my bag. A reminder for my shift at the cafe. I stared at it blankly before throwing the phone onto the passenger seat. There was no way I could stand behind that counter today, smiling at strangers while my own life lay in ruins. I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror without feeling sick. I thought back to the day he had slipped the silver ring onto my finger. We were sitting in his car, parked at the edge of the river, the city lights sparkling across the water. He had looked nervous, fumbling with the small velvet box. "Emily," he had said softly, "this is just the beginning. I'll get you something better later, but I promise you, it's you and me always." I remembered crying tears of joy, hugging him, believing every word. That tiny, modest ring had meant the world to me. I had worn it every single day since, cleaning it carefully whenever it dulled. And now, staring at it on my finger as tears streamed down my face, it felt like a shackle. A cruel joke. The worst part wasn't even that he was marrying someone else. It was that he had been planning it while holding me, while whispering, "I love you" into my hair, while letting me dream of a life together. It meant every kiss, every promise, every night spent curled against him had been a lie. My chest heaved as anger started to claw its way through the sorrow. Convenient. That's what he had called me. Convenient. Like I was some service he could summon when needed. Cook, clean, smile. A background character in his glamorous life. I pulled the ring off my finger so suddenly it scraped my knuckle, leaving a tiny cut. I stared at the drop of blood that formed, sharp and red, before throwing the ring into the cup holder. My hands were still shaking. I needed someone. Anyone. Without thinking, I unlocked my phone and scrolled down to Sarah's name. My best friend since high school. The one who had always been skeptical about Ethan. The one I had slowly drifted away from because every time I defended him, she would shake her head like she already knew the ending. When her voice came through, warm and familiar, I almost broke again. "Em? Hey, what's up? You sound..." I couldn't hold it in anymore. The words poured out between gasps and tears. "Sarah, he's getting married. Ethan. He's marrying someone else." I found the card. It was under his bed. He called me convenient. There was a silence on the other end, the kind of silence that wasn't empty but full of boiling anger. "That bastard," Sarah said finally, her voice shaking with rage. I knew he was trash. "Em, where are you? Tell me where you are right now." "In the car," I whispered. "I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do." "Listen to me," she said firmly. "You are not going to sit there alone and fall apart. Come to me. Right now. I'll make tea, and we'll figure this out. You don't have to carry this alone." Her words were a lifeline, pulling me back from drowning in the storm inside me. I wiped my face with the sleeve of my sweater, though my eyes kept spilling over. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay." The drive to her apartment was a blur. I didn't even remember the traffic lights, just the tight knot in my chest and the way my hands clenched the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. When Sarah opened the door, she didn't ask anything. She just pulled me into her arms, and I collapsed against her, sobbing into her shoulder. She stroked my hair the way she used to when we were teenagers, whispering, "It's okay, Em. Let it out. I've got you." I don't know how long I cried, but eventually, I found myself curled up on her couch with a blanket wrapped tightly around me, a steaming cup of chamomile tea in my hands. The warmth of it grounded me, though my body still felt hollow. Sarah sat across from me, her expression hard but her eyes soft. "Tell me everything." I told her. About the invitation, about the confrontation, about the way Ethan had laughed at the idea of marrying me, about the cruel words that still echoed in my head. Each detail spilled out like poison I had been carrying for years, and the more I spoke, the lighter I felt. By the time I finished, Sarah's jaw was tight, her fists clenched. "You gave him 4 years. You built your whole life around him, and he threw it away like it meant nothing. He doesn't deserve you, Emily. He doesn't deserve a single tear you've shed tonight." Her words were meant to comfort, but I shook my head. "I feel so stupid. Everyone tried to warn me, and I defended him. I believed him every single time he said soon, every single time he said I was his only one. I let him waste my life." "No," Sarah interrupted sharply. "Don't you dare blame yourself for his lies. You loved him, and he used that against you. That makes him a monster, not you a fool." I clutched the blanket tighter, staring into the steam rising from my tea. A part of me wanted to believe her, but another part, the part Ethan had shaped with his dismissive comments and subtle put-downs, kept whispering that maybe I hadn't been enough. "What do I do now?" My voice was small, like a child's. "He's marrying her in 2 days, Sarah. 2 days. And I'm sitting here broken." Sarah leaned forward, her eyes blazing. "Then maybe it's time he learns that actions have consequences. Maybe it's time you stop being quiet." Her words struck something inside me. A flicker. Small, uncertain, but alive. I didn't know what it meant yet, or how it would happen. But for the first time since finding that card, I felt something other than pain. I felt the beginning of resolve. I lay awake on Sarah's couch that night, staring at the ceiling while the faint hum of the city drifted in through the window. Her apartment smelled like lavender and old books, comforting in a way my own place hadn't felt in a long time. She had fallen asleep in her bedroom, but I couldn't close my eyes. Every time I tried, I saw Ethan's face again. Cold, dismissive, so different from the man I thought I knew. My chest tightened as his words replayed in my head. "Did you really think I'd marry someone like you?" Those words tore through me like knives, leaving wounds that no blanket could warm. I curled tighter under Sarah's quilt, trying to hold myself together. How could someone who had once kissed me with such tenderness now look at me like I was nothing? I thought about the countless mornings I'd woken up early just to make his coffee the way he liked. 2 sugars, a splash of cream. How I packed his lunch in neat little containers, careful to cut the fruit the way he preferred. I had thought those small acts were proof of love, proof of my devotion. But to him, they were nothing more than services, expected and unappreciated. My parents' voices came back to me then, memories from years ago before they passed. My mother always said, "Love should make you stronger, not smaller." My father used to tell me, "If someone wants to be in your life, Emily, they'll never make you beg for a place in it." Tears slipped down my cheeks as I realized how far I had drifted from those lessons. I had made myself small for Ethan. Smaller and smaller until there was almost nothing left. By morning, my head throbbed from lack of sleep, but Sarah was already bustling in the kitchen, her hair tied messily in a bun. She handed me a plate of scrambled eggs and toast without asking if I wanted it. "Eat," she ordered gently. "You need strength." I pushed the food around with my fork before finally forcing myself to take a bite. It was bland, but it was real. Something about the warmth grounded me. Sarah sat across from me, sipping her coffee. "So," she said slowly, "what's the plan?" "The plan." I let out a broken laugh. "I don't even know who I am without him. My entire life has been wrapped around Ethan. I don't even have savings. I don't even know if I can pay rent next month. What plan could I possibly have?" Her eyes softened, but her voice stayed firm. "You start small. 1 step at a time. First you stop blaming yourself. Then you decide what you want to do next. Do you want to let him marry that woman without knowing the truth? Do you want to just sit back while he walks away like nothing happened?" Her words stung because they touched something deep inside me, the part of me that was still screaming that this wasn't fair. That I had been robbed of years, of dreams, of a future. "I don't know," I whispered. "I feel like if I do nothing, I'll never forgive myself. But if I do something, I'll look crazy. He'll call me bitter, desperate. He'll twist everything like he always does. Sarah reached over and grabbed my hand, squeezing it tight. Emily, listen to me. You are not crazy. You are not desperate. You are a woman who was lied to for 4 years. You gave him everything, and he stole your time, your trust, your love. That's not small. That's not nothing. He doesn't get to walk away clean. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe I was stronger than this, that I could stand up to him, that I could face him and make him see the weight of what he had done. But fear kept creeping in. What if no one believed me? What if Victoria thought I was just some bitter ex trying to ruin her day? That evening, after Sarah went to work, I went back to my tiny studio apartment. The place felt even smaller than usual, the walls closing in around me. I sat on the floor with the invitation still in my hands. The names glared back at me, sharp and cruel. Ethan, James, Reynolds, and Victoria and Hayes. I traced the gold lettering with my fingertip until it blurred through my tears. Who are you, Victoria? I whispered. Do you know? Do you have any idea who you're marrying? I pictured her. Perfect hair, perfect smile, perfect family. The kind of woman who belonged in Ethan's world of expensive suits and luxury cars. Maybe she thought she was the lucky one. Maybe she thought she had found her forever. My heart clenched because that's exactly what I had believed once. And then a thought came, clear and sharp. She deserves to know. The idea terrified me, but it also sparked something deep inside. A flicker of power I hadn't felt in years. Maybe I couldn't get back the 4 years I had lost. Maybe I couldn't undo the pain. But I could stop Ethan from doing the same thing to her. The next morning, I called my brother, Daniel. My hands shook as I explained everything, but by the time I finished, his voice was filled with anger. He played you for 4 years? And now he's marrying some rich girl like nothing happened? Emily. No. He doesn't get away with this. Hearing the rage in Daniel's voice gave me strength. For the first time, I didn't feel completely alone. That night, Sarah came over with notebooks and pens, her eyes alight with determination. If you're ready, she said, we're going to make a plan. And just like that, the shift began. I was still broken, still raw, but underneath all the pain, a new resolve started to form. Maybe I wasn't just the woman Ethan threw away. Maybe I was the woman who was going to make him face the truth. The night felt endless as I sat at my kitchen table with Sarah and Daniel. Empty coffee cups and scribbled notes covered the surface, but my mind was too restless to focus on the words. I kept staring at the wedding invitation, lying flat in the center of the table like a poisonous heart we couldn't ignore. Every time my eyes landed on Ethan's name next to Victoria's, my stomach twisted. Daniel leaned back in his chair, arms crossed tightly. His jaw clenched the way it always was when he was angry. I can't believe he looked you in the eyes and told you all those lies. 4 years, Em. 4 damn years. He used you like you were. Stop, I interrupted softly, my voice breaking. I already know what I was to him. Sarah shook her head quickly. No. Emily. Don't say it like that. Don't let him define your worth. You weren't just some placeholder. You were someone who loved deeply, who believed in him. That's not weakness. That's not something to be ashamed of. Her words brought tears back to my eyes, but I forced myself to blink them away. Crying wouldn't change anything anymore. It doesn't matter what I was, I whispered. What matters is that Victoria doesn't know the truth. She's walking into a nightmare blind. Daniel leaned forward, his voice low and firm. Then we make sure she knows. She deserves the truth before it's too late. Sarah tapped her pen nervously against her notebook. The wedding is in 2 days. We don't have much time. Crashing a wedding isn't exactly simple. I pressed my palms against my eyes, trying to steady my breathing. My head felt heavy, but under the exhaustion was something sharper. Resolve. I don't want revenge just for me. This isn't about humiliating him. It's about stopping another woman from living the same lie I did. Sarah studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Then we'll do it. We'll figure out how. The hours dragged on as we threw out ideas, some reckless, some half-serious. But underneath all the scribbles and crossed-out words was one clear truth. I couldn't stay silent. When they both finally left, promising to be back tomorrow, I sat alone at the table. The quiet pressed in around me, and for the first time in days, I let myself breathe without breaking down. My reflection stared back at me in the dark window. Pale, tired, but different. There was something in my eyes I hadn't seen in a long time. Strength. The next morning, I went to work at the cafe, my apron tied tight around my waist. The smell of roasted beans and sweet pastries filled the air, but even the comfort of routine couldn't distract me completely. Customers came and went, faces I'd seen 100 times before, but all I could think about was the wedding looming closer. When I spilled a little milk while steaming it, my manager, Lisa, noticed. "You okay, Emily?" she asked gently, wiping the counter beside me. I forced a smile. "Just tired." It was easier than explaining. Easier than saying, actually, the man I gave 4 years of my life to is marrying someone else in 2 days, and I'm trying to figure out how to stop it without completely falling apart. After my shift, I sat in the back storage room for a while, staring at my phone. My thumb hovered over Ethan's number. I wanted to call him, scream at him, demand answers. But what good would it do? He had already made it clear I was nothing but a convenience. Talking to him would only open the wound wider. Instead, I scrolled through social media, searching for Victoria Hayes. It didn't take long to find her. Her life was practically an open book online. Smiling photos in designer dresses, vacations in Italy, charity events, friends who looked polished and powerful. And there, in the middle of it all, Ethan. His arm wrapped around her waist, his smile broad and confident, like he belonged in her world. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. It was like looking at a stranger. How could this be the same man who once kissed my forehead and told me I was his home? Sarah's voice echoed in my mind. He doesn't deserve to walk away clean. My chest tightened, but I sat up straighter. She was right. I couldn't let fear control me anymore. That evening, Daniel showed up with a folder in his hands. He dropped it on my table with a determined look. I did some digging. My heart thudded. What do you mean? He opened the folder to reveal printouts, pictures, receipts, posts. Everything I could find about Ethan and Victoria. Where the wedding is being held, who's invited, even the timeline of the ceremony. He's careful but not careful enough. I stared at the papers, my hands trembling. It felt surreal, like planning for something bigger than myself. But it also felt necessary. You don't have to do this, Daniel said gently. You could walk away. Start over. Forget about him. I shook my head slowly. I can't walk away knowing another woman is about to make the same mistake I did. I won't let him destroy her life the way he destroyed mine. Silence hung in the air before Sarah spoke, her voice steady. Then we stand with you. You won't face him alone. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a spark of hope. Maybe I wasn't as powerless as he wanted me to believe. Maybe this time, he wouldn't get the last word. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about what it meant to take back control of my life. Not just to expose Ethan, but to reclaim the parts of me I had buried for him. My laughter. My dreams. My worth. The wedding was only a day away now. The clock was ticking. And I was ready. The morning before the wedding felt heavier than any morning I had ever lived through. The world outside looked normal. Sunlight spilling over rooftops, people rushing to work, buses groaning along their routes. But for me, time felt strange, like the air itself was too thick to breathe. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee I couldn't drink. My hands wrapped around the mug for warmth, but it stayed untouched. Across from me, Sarah scribbled into her notebook, her brow furrowed in concentration. Daniel leaned against the counter with his arms folded, his eyes scanning me like he was afraid I might shatter if he blinked. You don't have to go through with this, Daniel said again, his voice low and careful. He'd been repeating it for hours. Emily, you can walk away. We'll pack up your things, help you move, start over. You don't have to see him again. I stared down at the steam curling from my mug. My reflection wavered inside the dark liquid. Tired eyes and pale skin. If I walk away now, I whispered, it means he wins. It means he gets to stand in front of a church full of people, smile at his bride, and pretend like I never existed. It means the last 4 years of my life are erased, like I was just some shadow. Sarah reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Her touch was warm, grounding. You were never a shadow, Em. He treated you like one, but that doesn't make it true. Her words softened something inside me, but they didn't erase the ache. I looked at both of them, my voice trembling. She deserves to know. Victoria deserves the truth before she says vows she can't take back. I can't let her walk into a life built on lies. I wouldn't wish this pain on anyone. Not even her. Daniel exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. Then we'll be there. We'll go with you. That promise meant more than I could say. For the first time in days, I didn't feel completely alone. Later, when Sarah left to run errands, I sat in front of my closet, staring at the clothes hanging limply inside. What does a woman wear when she's about to confront the man who broke her and the woman he's about to marry? Nothing felt right. My old dresses reminded me of the girl I had been when I believed in Ethan's promises. Soft, hopeful, naive. I didn't want to look like that girl anymore. I finally chose a simple navy dress, plain but strong. It wasn't flashy, but it felt like armor. I pulled my hair back into a low bun, my hands shaking as I looked in the mirror. My face stared back at me, drawn and tired, but my eyes looked different. There was something fierce there, something I hadn't seen in years. Still, beneath the resolve, fear gnawed at me. What if everyone believed him over me? What if they looked at me the way he did? Small, insignificant, unworthy? What if I ruined her day and she hated me for it? The doubts piled up, but underneath them all, a voice whispered, "Tell the truth. Just tell the truth." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the occasional honk from the street below, the clock ticking on my wall. Every sound felt louder than it should. My heart pounded like it wanted to escape my chest. Around midnight, Sarah called. "You awake?" "Yes," I whispered into the dark. Her voice was steady, calm, the way it always was when I needed her most. "You're not doing this alone, Emily. No matter what happens tomorrow, you won't stand in that room alone." Tears slipped down my cheeks, silent but unstoppable. "Thank you," I whispered back. When the morning of the wedding finally came, I felt hollow, like I was running on nerves and adrenaline alone. Sarah pulled up in her old car, Daniel in the back seat, wearing a suit that didn't quite fit. She looked at me in the mirror as we drove, her voice firm. "Remember, you're not going there to beg for anything. You're going to speak the truth. That's it. No more, no less." I nodded, gripping my purse so tightly my knuckles turned white. The drive to the cathedral felt like moving toward the edge of a cliff. The closer we got, the harder my heart pounded. Expensive cars lined the street, guests in tailored suits and sparkling dresses stepping out with laughter and smiles. They looked like people from another world, Ethan's world, the world I never truly belonged to. I sat in the car, frozen, watching them. My breath caught when I spotted him through the open cathedral doors. Ethan stood near the altar, tall and confident, his tuxedo perfect, his hair styled. He looked every bit the successful man he always wanted to be. And for a moment, a cruel wave of memory hit me, him holding me in his arms, telling me I was his forever. My stomach twisted, but then I saw her. Victoria. She stepped out of a sleek white car, her dress cascading like liquid silk, her smile bright and innocent. She looked radiant, glowing with happiness, completely unaware of the storm about to hit her life. My heart broke for her. Because I saw myself in her. Hopeful, trusting, blind. I swallowed hard, my voice trembling as I whispered. "She doesn't know. She has no idea." Sarah put her hand on mine. "Then let's make sure she does." The moment had come. I wasn't the same Emily who used to wait quietly for Ethan's promises. I wasn't his shadow anymore. I was ready to step into the light, no matter how much it burned. The cathedral doors loomed tall in front of me, carved wood polished until they gleamed in the afternoon sun. From inside, faint music drifted out, soft notes from a string quartet, elegant and serene. It should have been beautiful. It should have felt like a celebration. But to me, every note sounded sharp, mocking, like the soundtrack of a nightmare. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, my heels sinking slightly into the stone beneath me. My hands were cold even though sweat gathered at the back of my neck. Sarah touched my arm gently. "Emily, we can still walk away if this is too much." I shook my head, my throat dry. "No, I can't. If I leave now, I'll never forgive myself. I have to do this." Daniel adjusted his tie, his jaw tight. Then we're with you. Every step. The three of us crossed the street together. Guests were still arriving, laughing, greeting one another with hugs and air kisses. Their perfumes lingered in the air, expensive, floral, overwhelming. No one looked at me twice. To them, I was just another guest, another woman in a navy dress blending into the crowd. Inside, the cathedral was breathtaking. The ceiling stretched high above, painted with saints and angels, sunlight streaming through stained glass windows that bathed everything in colors of red, blue, and gold. Rows of white roses lined the pews, their fragrance thick and sweet. Every detail screamed wealth, perfection, control. But beneath the beauty, my heart raced so fast I thought it might tear through my chest. My palms were damp as I gripped my purse, trying to steady my breathing. I told myself over and over, "You're here to tell the truth. Just the truth." We slipped into a pew near the back. Sarah sat on one side of me, Daniel on the other, both close enough that their shoulders touched mine. Their presence kept me from falling apart, though my body shook with nerves. At the front, Ethan stood near the altar, his posture relaxed, his smile charming as he greeted guests who came up to shake his hand. He looked confident, powerful. My stomach turned. How could he stand there so calm, so sure, when he knew what he had done? The music shifted, and the murmurs died down. The ceremony was about to begin. I gripped the wooden pew so tightly that my knuckles whitened. My breath came in shallow gasps as the bridesmaids began their slow walk down the aisle, their pink dresses flowing behind them. A little girl scattered rose petals, her tiny shoes clicking softly against the stone floor. And then the music swelled. The guests rose to their feet. Heads turned toward the back doors. Victoria appeared, her arm linked with her father's. My chest clenched at the sight of her. She was radiant, her veil floating behind her, her face glowing with joy. Her smile was pure, untouched by doubt or fear. For a moment, my knees buckled. My throat tightened so much I couldn't swallow. "How can I ruin this for her?" whispered a voice inside me. "How can I walk into her happiness and shatter it?" But then Ethan's words replayed in my head, sharp and cruel. "Did you really think I'd marry someone like you? You were convenient." Anger steadied me. This wasn't about ruining her happiness. This was about saving her from the same pain I was living through. She didn't deserve to be blindsided years from now, broken and discarded like I had been. Victoria took her first steps down the aisle, her smile bright as guests turned to watch her. Ethan's eyes lit up as he saw her, his grin wide, confident, smug. He looked like a man who had everything: wealth, success, love. My heart pounded louder than the music. I rose slowly from my pew. Sarah's hand gripped mine, whispering urgently, "Emily, are you ready?" I nodded, even though my voice barely worked. "I have to be." As Victoria floated closer to the altar, I stepped into the aisle. The music faltered as my movement caught the attention of the nearest guests. Whispers rippled like a wave, spreading through the crowd. Heads turned toward me. My voice trembled at first, but the words spilled out clear enough to echo in the silence. "Excuse me." The music stopped completely. Every eye in the cathedral turned toward me. Victoria froze mid-step, confusion flickering across her face. Ethan's smile vanished, his entire body stiffening as his gaze locked on mine. For a brief moment, his eyes widened with fear before hardening into something cold and angry. I took another step forward, my heels clicking against the stone floor, the sound sharp in the heavy silence. My hands shook, but I held my head high. "I'm sorry to interrupt," I said, my voice breaking slightly but gaining strength with each word. "But before this wedding continues, there's something everyone needs to know." The cathedral erupted in whispers. Victoria's father straightened, his jaw tight. Victoria herself looked from me to Ethan, her smile fading, her brow furrowed in confusion. Ethan's voice cut through the air, sharp and desperate. "Security! Get her out of here!" But there was no immediate movement. People were too stunned, too curious. I clutched my purse tighter, my heart racing. My name is Emily Carter, and for the past 4 years, I've been living with Ethan Reynolds. Gasps echoed through the cathedral. Victoria's bouquet slipped from her hands, white roses scattering across the floor. And in that moment, for the first time in years, I wasn't his shadow. I was the light exposing the truth. For a second, Silence clung to the cathedral like heavy fog. The words I had just spoken hung in the air, trembling between the stained glass windows and the tall arches. My voice still echoed in my own ears, shaky but undeniable. Every single head turned toward me. Faces blurred together. Shock, confusion, disbelief. Some whispered behind their hands. Others just stared, wide-eyed, waiting for someone to tell them this was all some kind of cruel mistake. Victoria stood frozen in the middle of the aisle, her white gown trailing behind her like a river of silk. Her lips parted as if she wanted to speak, but no sound came. Her bouquet lay scattered at her feet, petals crushed against the stone. And Ethan. He stood at the altar like a man caught in a trap. His smile was gone, replaced by something I had never seen before, a crack in his perfect mask. Fear. But he recovered quickly. Too quickly. His voice rose, sharp and commanding. This is insane. She's lying. She's nothing but a bitter ex who can't let go. Get her out. He snapped at the ushers, but they hesitated, glancing uncertainly between me and Victoria. Curiosity, suspicion, doubt. All of it spread like fire among the guests. I clutched my purse tighter, forcing my trembling legs to keep moving. My heels clicked against the stone floor as I stepped farther into the aisle, closer to Victoria, closer to the truth. My voice trembled, but it didn't falter. I'm not lying, I said. I lived with him for 4 years. I cooked for him, cleaned his apartment, wore his ring, and waited for him to marry me. He promised me a future while he was building this one with her. Gasps rippled through the pews. A woman in the front row covered her mouth. A man whispered something to his wife, his eyes darting toward Ethan. Victoria's face crumpled, confusion turning to disbelief. Ethan, she whispered, her voice breaking. What is she talking about? Ethan's jaw tightened. His eyes burned into me, his voice dripping venom. She's crazy, Victoria. She's obsessed. She doesn't know what she's saying. I fumbled with my purse, my hands shaking as I pulled out my phone. My breath caught, but I forced myself forward. Obsessed? Then explain this. I held up the screen, the glow casting light on my tear-streaked face. On the display was a photo. Me and Ethan in his apartment, just last month. His arm was wrapped around me, his lips pressed to my hair, both of us smiling like people in love. I swiped to another, us cooking in his kitchen, him laughing as I sprinkled flour on his shirt. Another, me curled up in his bed, his face beside mine, peaceful in sleep. Gasps turned into murmurs, the sound rising, restless, undeniable. Victoria staggered, her father catching her arm before she collapsed. Her eyes darted between me and Ethan, wide and wet with tears. Tell me it's not true, she whispered. Tell me this is a lie. For a moment, Ethan didn't answer. His perfect composure cracked further, his eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. Then he laughed, a hollow bitter sound that bounced harshly off the stone walls. Did you really think I would marry someone like her? He gestured at me with a cruel wave of his hand. She's a coffee shop girl. She cleans tables and makes lattes. She was convenient. That's all. The words sliced through me like blades. My stomach clenched, my knees weak, but I stood tall. I refused to let him crush me again. The murmurs grew louder now. Anger, disgust, pity. Guests shook their heads. Some rose from their seats. Victoria covered her face with her hands, her body trembling. When she looked up, tears streaked her cheeks. Her voice shook, but it was clear. How could you? How could you do this to me? To her? To both of us. Ethan reached for her, desperation leaking through his mask. Victoria, listen to me. She's twisting everything. I never. She's not twisting anything, a firm voice cut through the chaos. Everyone turned. A woman in her 50s stepped into the aisle from the back of the cathedral, her silver hair styled elegantly, her posture tall and commanding. Her heels clicked against the stone as she walked closer. My heart skipped. I had never seen her before, but I knew instantly who she was. Ethan's mother. Mother. Ethan's voice cracked, startled. His confident mask shattered even further. She stopped halfway down the aisle, her gaze cold as ice. I tried to reach you, Ethan. I wanted to believe the best. But I've seen enough. Everything this young woman has said is true. The whispers erupted again, louder now. Ethan's face drained of color. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly, she snapped. Her voice was sharp, cutting through every corner of the cathedral. You've been lying to everyone. To me. To her. To this poor girl you strung along for years. You think you can manipulate and discard people like toys. You think the truth will never catch you. Her words echoed, stronger than mine had been, undeniable. Guests shifted uncomfortably. Some glared at Ethan. Others turned away as if ashamed to be there. Victoria's father stepped forward. His face red with fury. His voice boomed, deep and shaking with anger. You humiliated my daughter. You humiliated this entire family. How dare you stand here and call yourself a man? Ethan stumbled backward, his face pale, his hands twitching at his sides. Please just listen. No. Victoria's voice sliced through, stronger than before. Her tears still fell, but her words carried fire. I will not marry you, Ethan. I will not waste a single day of my life with a liar, a cheat, a coward. Her voice broke at the last word, but her resolve didn't. The cathedral erupted, guests standing, some shouting, others leaving. The string quartet set their instruments down, awkward and silent. The air buzzed with chaos, but I stood frozen, watching the man I had once loved unravel completely. Ethan turned toward me, his eyes wild. This is your fault, he spat. You ruined everything. You couldn't just let it go. You couldn't let me have the life I deserve. I swallowed hard, tears streaming down my face, but I didn't look away. My voice shook, but it was steady enough. No. Ethan. You ruined yourself. For the first time in years, he had no response. His mouth opened, then closed, but no words came. He looked small, cornered, broken. Victoria's father gestured toward the doors, his voice sharp. Get him out of my sight. Now. Ethan's world was collapsing before him, and there was nothing left he could do to stop it. And as I stood there, trembling but unbroken, I realized something I never had before. I wasn't his shadow anymore. I was free. The cathedral had turned into a storm of voices. Guests whispered loudly, some even arguing, their words bouncing off the stone walls. The air smelled of roses still, but now it was mixed with the sharp tang of fear, anger, and betrayal. The wedding that had been designed to look flawless was falling apart in front of everyone's eyes. Victoria had sunk into the nearest pew, her veil sliding from her head, her hands trembling in her lap. Her bridesmaids clustered around her, their pastel dresses a strange contrast to her devastation. Some tried to comfort her, but their own faces betrayed shock and confusion. She looked like she had aged in minutes, the joy drained from her eyes. Her father stood like a wall in the center aisle, glaring at Ethan with pure hatred. His broad shoulders blocked anyone from moving past him. You won't hurt her again, he said, his voice low and dangerous. Ethan, for the first time since I had known him, looked lost. His tie hung slightly crooked now, his perfect posture slouched. His eyes darted from face to face, searching for someone to defend him. No one did. He was alone, his mask shattered. And then he looked at me. Emily, he said, his voice breaking, you don't have to do this. You loved me once. You said I was your everything. You can't just stand here and destroy me. My breath hitched, but not for the reason he hoped. The way he said it, selfish, manipulative, desperate, made something inside me snap. I wiped my tears with the back of my hand and shook my head. No. Ethan. You destroyed yourself. You lied, you cheated, you used me. I gave you 4 years of my life, and you threw them away. Don't you dare stand here and ask me to protect you. Gasps rippled again through the crowd. Some of the guests nodded in quiet agreement, their eyes shifting away from Ethan in disgust. Ethan's mother stepped closer, her heels clicking like thunder against the stone floor. Her voice cut sharp and cold. She's right. You don't deserve protection. You deserve consequences. Mother, please, Ethan stammered, his face pale, his forehead shining with sweat. No, she snapped, her voice shaking but strong. I warned myself you were different, that you weren't like your father. But you are. You think the world belongs to you, and everyone else exists to serve your needs. You humiliated me. You humiliated yourself. You've stolen, you've lied, and you've broken lives. The guests murmured louder now, whispers turning into outrage. Stolen? Someone asked. What does she mean? Ethan's mother pulled a large envelope from her purse. Her eyes burned with fury as she held it up. Evidence. Proof that my son has been embezzling money from his firm and even stealing from my accounts. I turned everything over to the authorities this week. The whispers turned into a roar. People stood up, phones out, recording, their faces alight with scandal. Ethan staggered backward. His face drained of all color. You wouldn't, he whispered. I already did, she said coldly. And then, as if the universe itself was answering, the distant sound of sirens reached the cathedral. Low at first, then louder, growing closer with every second. Red and blue lights flickered faintly through the stained glass windows, painting the holy images with an unholy glow. My heart pounded, my breath shallow. The reality of what was happening hit me all at once. This wasn't just a wedding ruined. This was Ethan's life crumbling in front of everyone who had ever admired him. When the cathedral doors burst open, 2 uniformed officers entered, their boots echoing heavily against the stone floor. The guests parted quickly, their murmurs falling into stunned silence. Ethan Reynolds? The lead officer called out, his voice firm, official. Ethan froze, his body rigid. You're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and theft, the officer continued. You have the right to remain silent. The rest of the words blurred as gasps filled the room. Ethan's shoulders slumped as the second officer stepped forward, pulling handcuffs from his belt. No, wait, Ethan begged, his voice breaking into panic. This is insane. It's all lies. Emily, tell them you know me. You know I wouldn't. The officer grabbed his arm, twisting it behind his back with practiced precision. The metallic click of the cuffs echoed loud and final. Ethan winced, his eyes darting around in desperation. I stood frozen, my hands trembling, my heart racing. For so long, I had pictured what it would feel like to see him face consequences. I thought I would feel triumphant, maybe even relieved. Instead, I felt a strange mixture of grief and justice. This was the man I had loved, the man I had believed in, now reduced to a criminal being led away in chains. Victoria sobbed quietly in the pew, her bridesmaids whispering to her, holding her hands. Her father watched with fury in his eyes, but also a deep sorrow for the daughter whose dreams had been shattered. The officers guided Ethan toward the doors, his face pale, his lips trembling. Just before they pushed him through the exit, he twisted his head toward me. His eyes locked on mine, wild, desperate, pleading. This isn't over, he whispered, his voice hoarse. You'll regret this. The doors slammed shut behind him, and the cathedral fell into silence once more. For a long moment, no one moved. The scent of roses still lingered, but it felt sickly sweet now, a reminder of what this day was supposed to be and what it had become. I exhaled shakily, realizing I had been holding my breath. My body trembled as relief and sadness washed over me in waves. Sarah slipped her arm around my shoulders, holding me close, grounding me. Daniel stood on my other side, his hand on my back, steady and protective. I looked toward Victoria. She had taken her veil off completely now, her hair falling in loose curls around her tear-streaked face. Her eyes met mine across the aisle. There was no anger there, only pain and understanding. Slowly she stood, her gown rustling softly as she walked toward me. The crowd parted silently, giving her space. When she reached me, she paused, her lips trembling. For a moment, I thought she might slap me, scream at me for ruining her wedding. Instead she whispered, her voice hoarse but steady, "Thank you." My eyes burned with tears as I shook my head. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you had to find out like this." She reached for my hand, her grip gentle but firm. "You saved me. Better now than years later." We stood there, 2 women who had been deceived by the same man, united by betrayal but stronger because of it. The cathedral buzzed with whispers again, but for me, the noise faded into the background. For the first time in years, I felt seen, not by Ethan, but by someone who understood my pain completely. As the last of the guests filed out, murmuring, shaking their heads, the ruined petals still scattered across the floor, I realized something I never thought I would. The wedding was destroyed. But maybe, just maybe, my life was finally beginning again. The cathedral felt like a battlefield after a war, Flowers crushed on the floor, whispers lingering in the air, and broken dreams scattered in every corner. Guests moved out in hurried groups, their voices low but sharp, some pulling out phones to call family, others already posting about the scandal online. I stood there frozen, my body weak, as if my bones couldn't carry me anymore. Sarah and Daniel stayed close, guiding me gently toward the side doors so we wouldn't get swallowed by the exiting crowd. But before I could step away completely, Victoria's voice called out. "Wait." I turned slowly. She was still standing in her gown, her makeup smudged from tears, her veil abandoned on the pew. She looked fragile, but her voice carried strength. She walked toward me, her dress dragging against the stone floor, every step heavy but steady. When she reached me, she stopped just a breath away. For a moment, we simply stared at each other. Two women tied together by pain we hadn't asked for. Her lips trembled. "Emily." I don't even know what to say. I shook my head, my throat tightening. "You don't have to. I never wanted to hurt you, Victoria. I just couldn't let him ruin you the way he ruined me." Tears welled in her eyes again, but she blinked them away quickly. "You didn't ruin me. You saved me. If you hadn't walked in today, I would have married him. I would have built a life on lies, and it would have destroyed me later. You were brave enough to stop it." Her words cracked something inside me. I had carried so much shame, so much fear that people would see me as bitter, jealous, desperate. Hearing her gratitude was like lifting a weight off my chest. My tears finally fell, sliding hot down my cheeks. "I wasn't brave," I whispered. "I was terrified every second. But I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore." She reached out and took my hand, squeezing it. Her grip was soft but steady, her eyes glassy but clear. Sometimes bravery is just speaking when your voice shakes. You did that. And I'll never forget it. We stood there in silence, hands linked, while the last of the guests slipped out the main doors. Some glanced at us, whispering, but most avoided eye contact. No one knew what to say. No one could undo what had just happened. Finally, Sarah stepped closer, her voice gentle. "We should go. Reporters are going to show up any minute. This is the kind of story they'll eat alive." She was right. Already, through the stained glass windows, I could see flashes of lights outside. Cameras, journalists gathering like vultures sensing blood. My stomach knotted. I had never been someone people noticed, and now strangers wanted my face, my words, my pain as headlines. Victoria noticed too. Her voice firmed as she said, "I'll handle them. They don't need to know who you are, Emily. Not if you don't want them to. This isn't your scandal. It's his. Let me protect you the way you protected me." Her strength surprised me. She was broken-hearted, but she carried herself like someone who refused to let him win. That gave me strength too. Sarah and Daniel ushered me through the side exit, the cool air outside hitting my flushed face. A few reporters spotted us, shouting questions, but Daniel's broad frame shielded me as Sarah pulled me quickly toward the car. The noise blurred, cameras flashing, voices demanding, "Are you the other woman? Did you ruin the wedding?" Each word stung, but I kept walking, my eyes on the ground, my hand clutching Sarah's tightly. I didn't owe anyone out there an explanation. Inside the car, the door slammed shut, muffling the chaos outside. I sat in the back seat, trembling, while Daniel started the engine. Sarah turned in her seat to look at me, her eyes soft. "You did it, Emily. It's over." But it didn't feel over. My chest still felt heavy, my stomach knotted, my mind racing with images, Ethan in handcuffs, Victoria's tears, the look of betrayal in the guest's eyes. "I don't feel free," I admitted softly. "Not yet." Sarah reached back, squeezing my knee gently. "You will. Give yourself time. You carried his lies for years. You can't just drop the weight in one night. But it will get lighter." Her words wrapped around me like a blanket, and for the first time that day, I let myself breathe slowly, deeply. When we pulled up outside my apartment, I was shocked to see people already waiting. Neighbors lingering on the sidewalk, pretending to walk their dogs or water their plants, but really watching, curious. News traveled fast. My face burned as I hurried inside, Daniel keeping close behind me until the door was locked. Inside, the silence felt heavy, but safe. I sat on the couch, my body sinking into the cushions as exhaustion took over. Sarah sat beside me, pulling off her heels with a groan, while Daniel paced the living room, restless. "You should stay with us tonight," Sarah said softly. "The media's going to want your story. It might get ugly." I shook my head slowly. "I just want to be in my own space. I need to sit with this. I need to figure out who I am now without him." Daniel finally stopped pacing. His voice was quieter now, almost gentle. "Who you are is someone who stood up when it mattered. Don't let him take that from you too." I looked at both of them, gratitude swelling in my chest. "I don't know how I would have done any of this without you too." Sarah smiled faintly, leaning her head against my shoulder. "That's what family's for. Blood or not." As the night deepened, they finally left, promising to check in the morning. I sat alone, staring at the quiet apartment around me. Every corner still whispered with memories of Ethan. His jacket once hung on that chair. His laughter once filled this room. His promises had once seemed so real here. But tonight, it felt different. Tonight, the silence wasn't emptiness. It was space. Space for something new, something honest, something that belonged only to me. I curled under a blanket, exhaustion pulling at my eyelids. For the first time in months, maybe years, I fell asleep not waiting for his call, not clinging to his promises. I fell asleep free. The morning after the wedding felt like waking up from a dream that had been both a nightmare and a release. For the first time in years, I didn't wake to Ethan's voice in my head or his shadow pressing against me. Instead, I woke to quiet sunlight spilling across my bed, the air cool and calm, the world finally still. I sat up slowly, the weight of the last day pressing against my chest. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, a flood of messages and missed calls lighting up the screen. Journalists, distant acquaintances, even co-workers who had caught wind of the story. My name was already out there, whispered through social media, attached to headlines I had never asked for. But I didn't open a single one. Not yet. For once, I didn't owe anyone my explanation. Instead, I wrapped myself in a sweater and brewed coffee, letting the smell fill the small apartment. Every corner of the place still reminded me of him. But today, I noticed something different. His ghost didn't haunt it the same way anymore. The lies had been dragged into the light, and with that exposure, their power over me had weakened. Later that day, Sarah showed up with bagels, her messy bun crooked on her head, her eyes tired but kind. Daniel followed, his usual serious expression softer than usual. They sat with me, letting me talk, cry, laugh bitterly at small memories. They didn't push me to move faster than I could. They simply stayed. And that was enough. By the afternoon, there was a knock at my door. My stomach tightened when I opened it, but it wasn't reporters. It was Victoria. She wasn't in her gown anymore. She wore jeans and a simple blouse, her hair pulled back, her face bare of makeup. She looked exhausted, but strong. Stronger than I thought possible for someone who had lost so much in one day. "Can I come in?" she asked softly. I nodded, stepping aside. She walked in slowly, looking around the apartment that had once been mine and Ethan's shared space. She didn't judge it. She just took it in quietly, then sat at the kitchen table, folding her hands in front of her. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she lifted her gaze to mine. "I've been replaying everything you said. Every word. And I keep thinking, what if you hadn't walked in yesterday? What if I had said those vows and tied myself to him forever?" Her voice broke slightly, but she steadied it. "You saved me from years of pain. Maybe even worse." Tears pricked my eyes again. I didn't feel like a savior. I felt like a storm destroying someone's dream day. She shook her head firmly. "No. You weren't the storm. Ethan was. You were the one who stopped it before it swept me away. That's something I'll always be grateful for." I sat across from her, my hands trembling slightly as I wrapped them around my mug. "I'm sorry you had to find out like that. In front of everyone." Her lips curved into a sad smile. Maybe that was the only way I would have believed it. If you'd told me privately, I might have defended him. I might have thought you were lying out of jealousy. But seeing the truth exposed in front of everyone, I couldn't deny it. Silence settled between us again, but it wasn't heavy. It was healing, the kind of silence that let wounds breathe. Finally, Victoria stood. "I don't know what comes next for me. For either of us. But I do know this. You're stronger than you think, Emily. Don't let what he did define you. Let what you did yesterday define you instead. Her words sank deep into me, settling in a place that had been empty for too long. I walked her to the door, and as she left, we hugged, brief but real. Two women scarred by the same man, but not broken. Days turned into weeks. The scandal faded from the headlines, replaced by new stories. Ethan's trial date was set, and though the details spread through news outlets, I didn't follow them closely. He was no longer my responsibility. His choices were his, and his consequences belonged only to him. I focused on myself instead. I went back to work at the cafe, pouring lattes for strangers, wiping down counters, smiling at customers. For the first time, it didn't feel small or meaningless. It felt steady, honest. It was mine. On quiet evenings, I read books I had left unopened for years. I painted my living room a new color, soft sage green, covering the walls that had once echoed with Ethan's laughter. I filled the space with plants, candles, and small pieces of me I had forgotten to honor. Slowly, the weight lifted. The fear loosened. The shame dissolved. One evening, Sarah and Daniel sat with me on my balcony, glasses of wine in hand, city lights twinkling around us. Sarah leaned her head against my shoulder. Do you ever regret it? Walking in that day. I thought about it carefully. About the humiliation, the whispers, the stares. About the tears in Victoria's eyes. About Ethan's threats as he was dragged away. Then I shook my head. No. Because silence would have been worse. Silence would have meant letting him hurt someone else the way he hurt me. Telling the truth wasn't easy, but it was the only way to be free. The three of us sat there quietly, sipping, breathing, just existing. And in that moment, I realized the lesson etched into me by all of it. Love without honesty is just a cage. Lies, no matter how pretty, always collapse in the end. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't fighting for someone. It's letting them go and fighting for yourself instead. 4 years, I had been Ethan's shadow. But now I was my own light. And this time, I would never let anyone dim it again.